Hey, I'm Dr. Patty Barch, and when YouTube let me know that I had accidentally posted some medical misinformation on my channel, I really took it seriously and I'm continuing to develop videos to set the record straight, because clearly my 5 degrees in a scientific discipline and 30 years of my career in science and health and wellness, clearly that was just a waste of time. And the thousands of people that I've worked with over the years, really any results that they got were like purely accidental. And I'm going back to set the record straight, and as I've been doing, I need to go back in the time machine and get back to a point in my life where I didn't have any of that misinformation, bad education, and experience in myself. So I'm going back to when I was 14 years old and I still lived in the Boston area and had a pretty significant Boston accent. So to continue to set the record straight, I'm bringing you 14-year-old Patty Barch. Well, wasn't Barch at the time, but anyway. So the first thing I want to talk about is VAERS. So VAERS is the government system for making sure that people know if anything bad happens after a shot. And, people have already said in this, it's a fact that VAERS is unreliable because only 80% of the information that goes into VAERS comes from the doctors and the nurses. The 20% of it comes from the victims that's a bad word, comes from people who are lying. They're making stuff up. It's unreliable. So when you hear about stuff that's going on in VAERS, just dismiss it because it ain't real, And so when you hear about the spike protein that crosses the blood or destroys the blood-brain barrier, that ain't true. The blood-brain barrier, by the way, how important can that be? Like, really, you have a skull, you probably don't need anything else to protect your brain. But, stuff gets in there. So when you hear about things like tremors and seizures, like, that's probably all made up. Those people on those videos that you might see, like, they're faking it. They're just trying to scare you so you don't get the shots. But, like, that's all been disproven, because if this stuff was really happening, you would hear about it on TV, right? They will be talking about it on the TV, and they're not. So it's fake, and they're just trying to scare you into not getting the shots, and those are super important. So you got to make sure that you get those. So the other thing that people say like could be happening is this thing called Guillain-Barré, which is this progressive paralysis that kind of starts at the feet and goes up. You can think of it like getting paralyzed in quicksand. Like, it starts at your feet and moves up and up and up, and you're freaking paralyzed. But that doesn't happen. Like, you hear people talking about it, but again, if this was really happening, it'd be on the news. The other thing people are saying is that could happen is this Bell's palsy. This is when half your face gets paralyzed, and you could, like, it's really droopy. You can look it up online, but there's this guy from Australia. He's some kind of minister or something, and he got his first shot, and then he started wearing an eye patch. But you could wear an eye patch. Like, those are cool. So it's totally worth it to just go get it. There's no risk because, eye patches are cool. The other thing that people are talking about, and, the FDA and the CDC put out a warning about this, but it's really rare and mild, but it's this myocarditis and pericarditis thing that happens mostly in young people actually. Like, it's happening, or they're saying it's happening mostly in teenagers and in college athletes and stuff like that, where their heart gets inflamed. And then, but they're saying it when, even the FDA and the CDC says this happens, it's on their website, but, it's super rare and mild. And what that means is that most of these kids are treated with drugs that they just take at home. But they can't play sports because their heart's inflamed, and they got to take these drugs for probably a year. And when their heart heals, there'd be some scar tissue and, limited function. And, in the worst case, they might need a heart transplant. But that's why we have heart transplants, right? So, the fact that this is coming up enough that the FDA and the CDC did put a warning out there that this could happen. But honestly, if it was really happening, we would see it on TV or on the radio. So the other thing is, like, you hear about these crazy women talking about menstrual changes. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, the New York Times was not gaslighting people when they said that you're not experiencing menstrual changes, because like, who knows better about what's happening in your underwear than the New York Times, right? So like, it doesn't matter that you have an app that totally showed you all your data for like the past 10 plus years of what's been happening in your underwear every month. The New York Times said you're not experiencing any changes. So knock it off. So the other things that's kind of crazy is, you hear about all these people who have these bleeding issues. So sometimes it's that menstrual stuff, but we already discredited that. But some people are having nosebleeds that like they need to be cauterized because they can't stop the bleeding. But the opposite of that can happen too, supposedly, which are blood clots. And so what's really interesting, if you listen to these liars, these doctors that talk about the autopsies and stuff that they're doing, is that they see these microclots. So it's not always big blood clots, which some people are lying about, but sometimes it happens. But these microclots that these lying doctors are talking about, these are in the capillaries, and they're really tiny, like throughout the body. So if this was really happening, you'd be hearing about it on the TV. And so the increase in strokes, the increase in heart attacks, like that sort of stuff, it's just, it's people being hysterical. So just let it go. And, the other thing that people are starting to see is these cancers. So, the research that shows that somehow that pointy protein thing disables the natural killer cells, which are your body's way to take care of cancer in your body as soon as it starts. So somehow apparently that pointy protein disables those, so that any cancer that you might have that your body's trying to suppress, it can go kind of ape on you. And but if this was really happening, you would hear about this on the TV. So you gotta trust the television. You can't trust these doctors. You can't trust VAERS, even though 80% of the reports, they go in from like the medical staff, but they could be saying anything because they got all kinds of time to kill, these medical professionals. So the fact that it takes half an hour to submit a single case into VAERS and that it crashes a lot, that just shows you that it's completely unreliable. So we know, because this thing has been around for like a year, so we know that moving forward, for decades to come, there's not going to be any detrimental effects, right? We know this because we've had this thing for a year. So in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, like we're not going to see any increase in autoimmune diseases. We're not going to see any cancers or infertility, like nothing like that, because we already been looking at it for a year. And if there were problems with it, the government would tell us and the TV would tell us, and they would stop it. So, don't take your vitamins, just listen to the TV, keep taking the shots, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to clear the air right here on this for you. All right, peace out.